The all-new Transportation Commission to order for January 23rd. We ask that, I'm going to lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ortiz. Here. Commissioner Hattery.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Cutter.
Present.
Commissioner Miley.
Here.
Commissioner Carson. Commissioner Blaylock.
Here.
Commissioner Gilmore.
Here.
Commissioner Moss.
Here.
Commissioner Capitelli.
Here.
Commissioner Sabraki. Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Harrison. Commissioner Pope. Here. Commissioner Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Fraser.
Ready.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan. Here. Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Thorne. Commissioner Gregory.
Here.
Commissioner Bernacci. Here. Double quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Public comment, a time which you can speak to anything that is not on the agenda. I have one speaker's card, and I'll move to Ken Bukowski.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ken Bukowski. I'm a retired City Council member. And I have a new project, and that project is to video record the meetings of the MTC, AVAG, and this commission. So available on YouTube at onebayarea.us, you will find the videos of the MTC meetings, the AVAG meetings, and now these meetings. And you would have had the executive committee meeting this morning, except my memory card filled up. Just an amateur photographer, but doing something I think should have been done a long time. And I would encourage the commission to video record the meeting so I don't have to do it, then I can just post it without having to make the recording. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. No other public comment. I'll move to the election and of the chair and the vice chair. Here, yeah, Director Blaylock.
If I might, things are going along swimmingly and speedily, and I'd like to have you keep the reins in hand for another year. That's why I'm
Second.
Thank you. Is there any other nominations? With that, you okay, Gregory? Okay. Didn't know if you wanted to forfeit on this one. Okay, with that, I'll close the nominations. Is there any objection to the motion? Okay, the motion will pass without objection. Was that good enough for you? Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
That's what I said. I didn't use the word unanimously?
You're not.
Okay. Some new law. Okay, so looking for the vice chair nomination?
I would like to nominate my colleague.
Is there any other nominations?
move the nomination to close.
Motion, second, close the nominations. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much. Continues. All right. Well, I guess Art anticipated this, so thank you for trusting me and keeping me as your chair for another year. Thanks, Art. Appreciate that. We have a lot of work to get done this coming year, and we've all been working very hard. I think that we're working hard enough to get the sales measure passed here in November. As you know, this will allow us to continue to make needed investments in our infrastructure and create jobs. Speaking of jobs, we do have a firm here in this building that actually turned 100 years old, and we thought we'd give them a nice little letter and a little certificate. So I would ask that Darlene G come up. This marks the 100th anniversary of HNTB, who we hope that you stay here in Oakland for at least another 100 years, although I don't know if I'll be long for that. And I want to congratulate you on this major milestone with a letter signed by me. Okay? And good to see you.
Thank you very much, Chair Haggerty.
There you go, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Can you take a pose for just a second?
Oh, wait. Do you want us to hold this up? Here, come here, out here. There we go.
Thank you. Great.
Now one for Ken.
Okay, we got you.
Okay, that's long enough.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We know how valuable your time is, but I want to thank you. Again, I'm Darlene G. I'm the principal in charge of our practice here in the Bay Area. We've had the privilege and honor to provide professional services for many years to many of your measure projects, and we look forward to continuing to do so for many years to come. So thank you very much. It's a very special anniversary for us.
Well, you just came in on top. You guys are on the wrong mic, so that's around a little bit. But go ahead, I'm gonna, Dennis got speaker now, but here we go.
I just want to make a comment regarding AT&T, and I've had a long time relationship with them over the years on different projects for different reasons. And I had recently the opportunity at their company's request, I was permitted to be the only outsider as an engineer to help them with their evaluation of outstanding projects that had been designed by their firm nationally, I think maybe even internationally. And it was a pleasure for me to work with all of them. Just talk about going outside your firm and having other people help you look at that so it's unbiased. And congratulations on the 100 years.
Okay, great. Forget it, we're just gonna have to land. All right, so as we move forward, I think that we've made a lot of progress in bringing the 2014 transportation expenditure plan to you today. In December, the commission formed an ad hoc committee of myself, Commissioners Kaplan, Capitelli, and Marchand to finish the wordsmithing in the TDP. The ad hoc committee performed a thorough review of the final document you have before you today and recommends your approval. The steering committee also unanimously approved it earlier and recommended it for your adoption. The ad hoc committee sat in a room together and went line by line, this is honest truth really, line by line through, and so I hope you don't find any spelling errors or anything, of the document addressing issues and concerns raised by the commissioners here, such as including shuttles in the technology and innovation, confirming, I'll get to that in a second, but keep an eye on it. Shuttles in the technology and innovation section, confirming that we address the league's issue, limiting the words that the general public doesn't understand about transportation. The changes in the TEP reflect the poll results issues the League of Women Voters had with the plan and includes more clarity on the performance and accountability. We did not change any projects. Some of this is a little old though, so I'm going to have to explain this. And the only project description change was the Dunbar Rail Corridor, where we changed it to remove rail and instead fund transit operations for buses across the Dunbar Bridge, local streets, bike ped and TOB investments in the Tri-Cities. The executive summary makes it easy to understand what is in the plan and what the priorities are for the funding, and that we have a sunset date. This 30-year, $8 billion plan is our opportunity to create many needed transportation infrastructure investments in every one of our cities in all areas of the county. This, as I said earlier, is going to help our economy, jobs, clean air, and quality of life. Having said that, I do want to jump back because we did take the shuttles out of the transportation, or out of the technology and innovation section, and we moved it to what section?
Community development investments.
Community development investments. So I want to make sure that that's on the record and that is clear. It is no longer in the technology and innovation section, so it's in the community development area section, and so I hope that that helps everybody. I think that Ruth has pushed very hard to that along with Supervisor Carson and Capitelli. We're all very much interested, and we as a committee felt that that was the right thing to do. It also will allow them to compete with a little bit more money than what was in the technology section of the TEP. So with that, I'm not sure that we're not actually voting on this right now, are we?
No.
No, that's later on in the agenda. So that's kind of my report. I want to thank you all, and I mean this sincerely, for allowing me to continue to chair this agency. There's a lot of great things, and you know, it's fun working with you. And it's also very fun working with our staff. I have to be honest with you. The fact that we were just AAA rated by Standard & Poor's and
Yeah, that's
Fitch.
incredible.
And Fitch has never given a AAA rating to any half-cent sales tax authority in the state of California. And I think it's a testament to not so much Art, but more Trish. And Art hired her, so he gets some credit. But, no, we just have amazing staff, so I really do appreciate to be able to chair this at least for one more final year. With that, I will ask the vice chair if she has anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your next year as chair, and thank you all for your support for another year as vice chair. I think we are right now at the midpoint on a very important process as we are almost done finalizing Measure BD, which really has the capability to make a lot of the things we talked about into a reality in the coming years in terms of whether it's transit-oriented development, whether it's repairing aging infrastructure and bridges and roads and filling potholes. We have a great deal ahead of us that needs to be done, and it's very exciting to be at this point in developing the plan to accomplish that. So thank you all for all the work that's gone into it, and I imagine we'll talk more about the specific final changes in the TEP when we get to that agenda item, so I won't bother talking about them now. But look forward to continuing the work together.
Good. All right, so moving right along, I think I have the opportunity to get you out at a relatively decent hour today. So we'll just keep going. I'm looking for an approval on the consent calendar, which is item 7.1 through 7.23. Moved by Cutter. Second. Kaplan. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion passes unanimously. All right.
That was a lot of reading.
Huh?
That's a lot of reading.
That's a lot of reading. All right. We'll move to 8.1, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Midori, are you here? Here you are. Okay. I think we have all three of you here today.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Midori Tabata, and the BPAC last met on Thursday, January the 9th. We've been considering our role since our original charter to review and recommend grants for funding through the Measure B discretionary funding has changed. We want to continue to be value added to the Commission, and the staff has assisted in helping us to find our future, we hope. We're looking at the possibility of being a review committee for projects and programs as it relates to walking and cycling and complete streets for the county. We will discuss this once again at our April meeting and hopefully come to some kind of conclusion, and I'll be able to make a report at that point. We received an update on the Safe Routes to School program, a program initially funded through the discretionary bike ped Measure B funds. This program has grown successfully and substantially since the pilot and is considered a national model. And this is an unsolicited plug, but Arun Goel, as a program manager, is doing an excellent job of managing the program to ensure its success and viability. So thank you. We also received the final report of the Bicycle Safety Education Program conducted by the East Bay Bicycle Coalition. This was another grant funded through the Bike Ped Funds, and this program will now be part of the overall Safe Routes to School program grant beginning this year. So that was it, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the board?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to congratulate Midori, who had another great legislative victory this week at the City of Oakland, which thanks to the advocacy of Midori and other members of Oakland's bicycle and pedestrian community has created a bicycle and pedestrian advisory commission with 9 members to include a broad cross-section of the community. So congratulations, and looking forward to that getting going in Oakland to strengthen that voice there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, 8.2, James Paxton, all the way from Pleasanton, California.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
James Paxton, Citizens Watchdog Committee. Our committee last met on January 13th, and as I reported the last time, this first meeting of the year is a very important meeting for us. Actually, before I get started, I wanted to thank you by the action that you took on the consent calendar. We now get to welcome Cynthia Dorsey to our committee. I've had the pleasure of working with Cynthia for over 15 years. She's an excellent addition, and so we are glad to welcome her to our group. So the first meeting of the year is devoted to starting to look at the agency reports. What's interesting about this particular year is we're now the second year into the new analysis that came as a result of the revised funding agreements with the different agencies. And because of some of the specific language in the funding agreements with regard to how quickly funds need to be spent down, how long funds can be held, what types of pots different agencies can put the money in. The reporting is much more complicated, and I really wanted to give a high compliment to staff for not only doing a good job, in my opinion, of explaining kind of how the reporting process works to our committee and giving us some guidance to go through the reports, but also for creating a system that I think will be very important in terms of measuring accountability with the different agencies as we go forward. As you probably know, one of the things that happens with the funds is that they can start to be put in different reserve accounts, but these reserve accounts all have a lifetime of their own. So the reporting is going to get a little more complicated even in years 3 and 4. And we had a discussion with staff about kind of how we can go forward and track this. But I really believe that with the system that's been put into place, we're going to be in a very good position to critically evaluate these reports as they come in each year. So we have a few more weeks left to provide comments to staff. Those will then go back out to the respective agencies, and we'll go through the normal cycle of going back and forth with the agencies to finalize the full accounting and the full reporting, which will come out later, I believe, in June or July. There was a couple of important reports that we went through during the meeting that I wanted to mention very quickly. One, staff did an excellent presentation on projects and programs. This is sort of an annual presentation that we get with particular emphasis on the Dumbarton Rail because of some interest on our committee in that particular project. It was very informative. We also spent a good deal of time talking again about our outreach program. As I've also mentioned in the past, one of the things that we really want to make sure that we're doing as our committee is making sure we get the word out about a report and doing a good job of informing the public about the findings of the committee each year as we go through the audits. So we've actually formed a special subcommittee that will be meeting before our next meeting to talk a little bit more about outreach, how we can increase our effectiveness, how we can better use social media, and other types of avenues to create a better outreach program. The final thing that I wanted to mention was a discussion on the issuance of debt. There have been some questions that were raised by the committee members, and staff did a presentation on the agency's debt program. I was asked by several members of the committee to convey some concerns that the committee had that they would have liked to have seen and felt that a more public process of notification about the assumption of debt be taken on before that discussion was finalized. I think they felt very comfortable with the level of discussion that was happening at the commission level, but they also felt that the intent of the measure would be better served by maybe doing a more public discussion or doing a more public information campaign prior to actually taking on debt in the future. With that, our next meeting will be March 10th, 2014. We do have a couple of vacancies that I just wanted to announce really quickly. Alameda County Mayor's Conference District 3, Alameda County Mayor's Conference District 4, League of Women Voters, and Sierra Club are our current vacancies on the committee. We welcome those appointments, and anything that you're able to do to make those happen would be greatly appreciated, and I'd be glad to answer any questions for you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, James? Thank you, James. We will now talk with Sylvia. She's going to tell you if you have vacancies or not and everything that the pedestrian advisory plan can do.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and Happy New Year to you. I'm Sylvia Stadmeyer, Chair of PAPCO. PAPCO is working on revisions to the Alameda Access Alameda Guide. and website with the Paratech. We met in a joint subcommittee on December the 16th and will meet again next Tuesday in the months of February and March. PAPCO's regular meeting is on Monday, the 27th, and we will consider a request for the gap capital funding from the Bay Area Outreach and Recreation Program to assist them in getting a new van through 5310. We will also consider a request from AC Transit for gap matching funding for their new Freedom Grant to expand mobility management through 211. We will then receive a presentation from the East Bay Paratransit and a Gap Cycle 5 grantee, the City of Fremont, on their mobility management and travel training program. Both PAPCO and Paratech are providing input into TEP communications. Our current vacancies are in the City of Piedmont and Sister Valley and Supervisor Valley. We are pleased also, and would like to make you aware, if you're not, to acknowledge Naomi Armento for receiving the Minetta Transportation Institute Student of the Year Award. Her recognition came from the United States Department of Transportation, and we are very pleased for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Any questions for Sylvia? Thank you for all the great work you and your committee are doing. Appreciate it. All right. Moving right along, we will move to our 9.1, which is legislative update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an information item only, and I will be relatively brief on this item. I wanted to provide you an update, a brief update on state and federal issues, and share with you how we're moving forward with our legislative program. In December, you approved your legislative platform for 2014, and it included 6 categories: transportation funding, project delivery, multimodal transportation and land use, climate change, goods movement, and partnerships. And I just wanted to let you know that each month we will be coming back and presenting to you updates on those categories regarding legislation and policy issues affecting those areas. Real briefly on the governor's budget that was released earlier this month. It's generally a good news overall budget. 107 billion statewide, about 8 billion over the 13-14 budget levels, and that includes paying down debt and creating a rainy day fund. Transportation specifically, I'll focus on that. We are seeing a proposed increase of about 1.7 billion for transportation in the governor's budget over last year's. And I wanted to note that there has been a transportation working group that's been working around the state that was convened by the governor to focus in on how do we address managing our transportation system and funding transportation. And their priorities reflect what's in the governor's budget, which includes maintaining the existing transportation infrastructure, modernizing rail, and supporting local governments in the implementation of the Sustainable Communities Strategy. I wanted to convey to you that there will be ongoing work of this committee that will continue to address reforms for the Department of Transportation, look at how to implement goods movement more effectively throughout the state of California, and continue to discuss how we have a long-term and stable funding revenue stream for transportation. Regarding new transportation funds in the governor's budget, mostly those come from cap and trade. There's a recommendation for about $850 million in cap and trade revenues to flow into the overall budget, about $600 million to transportation specifically. And part of that $850 million includes about $100 million in a repayment from a loan that the state had against the cap and trade funds last year. As I mentioned, there's about $600 million for transportation in the governor's proposed budget, about $300 million for rail modernization, which is including $250 million for high-speed rail and about $50 million for an integration of rail operations to integrate into the high-speed rail system, and Caltrans will be administering that $50 million. The Sustainable Communities is having a proposed $100 million allocation for implementation of the sustainable community strategies throughout the state of California. That is proposed to be administered by the Strategic Growth Council at the statewide level. We here at Alameda CTC and our transportation partners around the state have advocated for these funds to come into the metropolitan regions and that the money can be allocated from the metropolitan regions into counties and cities such as Alameda County. The Bay Area had anticipated in its work that it had been doing over the past few months receiving about $100 million in the Bay Area. So this number of $100 million in the governor's budget is far less than what was hoped for in terms of sustainable communities. There are a few more auctions this year for cap and trade. There's one in February and then there's another one in May. So we may see that amount increase in the governor's May revise. I also wanted to note that low carbon transportation has about $200 million allocated to it for transportation. The other areas in terms of funding for transportation where we're seeing an infusion of funds is an early loan repayment, a loan that was from the state highway account to the general fund, and that money is going to be repaid into the highway account, and money will flow into cities and the counties as well as into transit. And then finally, in terms of revenues that would be coming into transportation, the governor is proposing appropriating the final appropriation amount for the Prop 1B funds, which would go for local transit, intercity rail, and highways. I wanted to note that we are continuing to work with our partners on addressing the cap and trade funds for sustainable community strategies. We are still trying to push that funding be allocated to the regional level, and we have been working with our partners across the state, giving examples of types of projects that we have funded here, for example, through the One Bay Area Grant Program, that help to support low-income communities or disadvantaged communities, transit-oriented development, bike and ped investments. So on a policy-related issue regarding the governor's budget, I just wanted to note that he has included infrastructure financing districts, the authorization to create those and to expand the use of them. He's looking at lowering the voter threshold to create those, and the aim would be to allow local governments to have easier access to creating infrastructure financing districts to start to help with the replacement of some of the redevelopment funds. I also wanted to note that at the statewide level, there is a transportation initiative that is has received official title and summary, and this is to increase the vehicle license fee by about 1% over a 4-year period. This would have to garner signatures to be able to be placed on the ballot, and it's looking at increasing the VLF by 1%, as I mentioned, which would generate about $3 to $4 billion a year. The allocation of those funds, if this does go to the ballot and if it is approved, would be about 25% for cities, 25% for counties, about 40% for SHOP, and about 10% for transit. On the federal side, I wanted to note that the president did sign the omnibus bill just over the weekend, and we're seeing for transportation some increases in funds for transportation investments. There's an increase in the Tiger Grant discretionary program by about $126 million. There's an increase in funding for the federal highway program, and there's an increase in funding in the New Starts program, and then the rest of the programs are basically funded at the MAP 21 appropriation levels. I also wanted to note on the federal side just one change at the federal level, and if you may have worked with a former MTC employee, Teresa McMillan, she was over at the FTA, and now she has been moved to the acting FTA administrator. She was the deputy administrator for several years. Regarding the president's proposed budget for fiscal year 2015, we're seeing that likely that proposed budget is actually going to come out a little later than normal. Usually it comes out in February after the union address, but because the debt ceiling needs to be addressed by February 7th, he's looking at potentially releasing his budget at a later time. So with that, that's a brief overview on state and federal legislative activities.
So she replaced Peter Rogoff?
Peter Rogoff got promoted himself, yes.
Actually, no, he didn't get promoted. He went to New York.
Well, Polly Trottenberg was the undersecretary for DOT, and Peter Rogoff is taking her place as
Why
that
did they
person.
vote for New York?
No. Polly Trottenberg left and
So
was
he's still there?
He's still there,
He's
he's
still
now the
more powerful?
undersecretary. He's more powerful now.
You put specific $1 million on the airport.
Well, you know, I don't even want to go into that, Larry. He's costing a lot of money on new projects too. But since we're now on YouTube, I'll keep my comments to myself. Yes, go ahead.
So I think that's great news, though, that Therese McMillan, who's spent many years here and a positive presence here is in this new role, and I think it would behoove us to send her some congratulations, and assume she's living there now.
Yes.
But certainly to, imagine she'll be visiting here, we'll invite her to tour some of our exciting projects. In any case, I'm looking forward to working with her, and I think it would be wise for us to send her some sort of congratulatory update from our commission.
Absolutely. We have one major project here that is waiting. We want to get a federal funding grant agreement. That is the East Bay BRT project. So we're going to be looking forward to work very closely with Therese in her new role as an FTA administrator who make all the powerful decisions relative to small and new start funding.
Okay. No, Therese has been a great friend, so I look forward to it. Any other questions on this item? All right, 9.2.
Okay, Commissioner Haggerty gave a brief overview on the transportation expenditure plan during his chair's report, but I will also give an overview of the transportation expenditure plan and its changes. And this is an action item, and I just wanted to note that we are very pleased actually to bring to you today this transportation expenditure plan. It's a culmination of the past few years and then the last 6 months intensive work on modifying the 2012 transportation expenditure plan. Since July, there have been a series of activities associated with addressing, moving forward with another transportation expenditure plan before voters. That included polling, we did focus group work, and what we found from both the polling and focus group efforts is that the priorities that we had in the 2012 expenditure plan are still important to voters. They remain important. What we found is that we needed to change some of the language so it was more understandable to voters instead of what we call our transportation wonkiness. I also wanted to note that we have had several meetings with different stakeholders. We had 2 meetings with the League of Women Voters, and those were very positive meetings. We held a meeting with them early on, or in December actually, and had the opportunity to hear from them what their concerns were on the 2012 expenditure plan. We were able then to come back and meet with them for a second time and share with them how we integrated responses to their concerns in the transportation expenditure plan. And I just wanted to take a moment and thank them, Holly, for all of your time and commitment in participating in those meetings.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We also, there was quite a lot of work from the Tri-City mayors and the Board of Supervisor members who represent the Tri-City areas to address the Dumbarton Rail Corridor project. That is a project that had a change in its project description, and I will go through further what those changes are, but that was a collective effort of the Tri-Cities elected leadership. This plan, this 30-year, $8 billion transportation expenditure plan really provides a powerful opportunity for Alameda County to deliver environmentally sustainable transportation investments that will help meet our growing needs in Alameda County while supporting jobs and local businesses as our economy continues to recover. We see this plan as a major tipping point for Alameda County. We think it's a very balanced and innovative plan that provides essential funding for keeping our system in a state of good repair, while also expanding transit capacity and commuter options, and creating affordable transportation solutions for our seniors, our youth, and our people with disabilities in Alameda County. I'd like to briefly go over some of the changes in the transportation expenditure plan with you. First and foremost, there were no changes in funding amounts. There were no changes on any funding amounts to projects, and there were no changes in any formula amounts for any of the operations and maintenance. In general, we enhanced the accountability measures. We incorporated performance and cost effectiveness measures into the plan, and we expanded the fact that there has to be open and transparent processes for allocating the funds. And that's not only here at Alameda CTC, but that's for every single jurisdiction that receives those funds needs to allocate them through open and transparent processes. We eliminated redundancies in the plan to tighten it up, and we eliminated some out-of-date information from the 2012 plan. We've included a new executive summary. It's a quick read. It's reflective of the polling results where we saw priorities for people, and it's easily understandable in terms of what the priorities are in the transportation expenditure plan as well as what the funding is. I wanted to note that we did make some changes in the transportation investments. We changed essentially the names of the funding categories so people could understand more readily what they were. An example of that, I'll give you just a couple of examples. We had a mass transit category, and what we learned from polling is people didn't really know what mass transit was, and so that has been modified to read BART, bus, senior, and youth transit. We also changed another title for something called Sustainable Transportation and Land Use Linkages to now be Community Development Investments. So those are the examples of the title changes. We added a new paragraph that clarifies the use of express lane funds. In other words, that the revenue, the net revenue from the express lanes comes back into the corridor and can be used for transit operations and transit capital. For the Dumbarton Rail Corridor, we removed rail and included funding for transit across the Dumbarton corridor, as well as funding for transit-oriented development, bicycle and pedestrian, and local street and road investments. We included a paragraph that addresses displacement. If a project occurs that displaces residents, the project sponsor is required to address displacement. And then their shuttles were incorporated into the plan, and as Supervisor Hagerty was mentioning earlier, it was originally in technology, and now it has moved into a larger funding category as an eligible component for community development. In the implementing guidelines, we added a new paragraph on performance and cost effectiveness measures, and we linked those in with the independent watchdog committee's review. So they will periodically look at the performance measures and the cost effectiveness measures as we are implementing this plan. This plan has a 30-year sunset date that has been incorporated into the plan. And then for other general changes that we made, we eliminated words that people were confused by or didn't understand. I do want to thank the ad hoc committee that did, as Commissioner Hagerty noted, go line by line through this plan. They sat in a room and went through the whole plan, and they recommended this plan to the steering committee, which met earlier today. The steering committee made the one change I mentioned, which was to have shuttles be eligible in the community development section, and they have unanimously recommended that it come before you for your approval moving forward. So the recommendation today is to ask for your approval of the 2014 Transportation Expenditure Plan and to direct staff to go to each of the cities in Alameda County to approve the plan, and then to the Board of Supervisors to place it on the ballot. Our aim is to begin immediately in scheduling these meetings if this is approved today, and also this recommendation includes additional funding for polling to be performed this year. With that, staff recommends your approval.
All right. I have a couple speakers, but I also did want to acknowledge Mayor Mark Green, who's in the audience, who I would say had even though he has not been here for the last year, he's had a big contribution to the expenditure plan as it is before us. As Tessa said, there's very little that we've changed. It was because of his leadership that got us this plan that we have before us today. So Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it. With that, I have speakers. Do you wish to speak? Do you wish to ask questions or anything? You can punch in, then we're gonna go this way. I have Catherine first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really want to thank all the members of our staff and the members of the public who participated in the work that's been being done for the past several months to improve this plan. I think this is a significantly improved plan, most dramatically in terms of public oversight. The revisions that have been made now have a genuinely independent and independently appointed watchdog committee that will have expanded authority to ensure that we do the very things that we are saying in this plan that we are going to do. The plan is a great opportunity to fund truly important projects, and I really want to also appreciate Commissioner Atkin and Commissioner Carson and Capitelli, who in our earlier meeting today came up with what I think is an excellent suggestion to strengthen the funding for shuttles. We know that we have some very important shuttles in our area, including the Emery Go Round, as well as others, that are a key link in our transportation infrastructure. So strengthening the funding eligibility for those shuttles is one last change that was made today. And so I also think it's important to note some of the things that we haven't talked about the last month because they weren't controversial, but I want to make sure we don't forget them, like the free bus pass for school children, like doubling the funding for paratransit throughout the county, more than doubling the funding for bicycle and pedestrian programs throughout the county, making significant investments in transit-oriented development and pothole filling and infrastructure repair. So I think that there's a lot to be pleased with here. And if that was a motion, I'm happy to second it. If it's not yet that time, I'm happy to wait till we finish the comments.
Yes, I had your own motion.
Oh, I thought, no, I didn't make the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Thorne, followed by Commissioner Ratch.
Yes, I hate to keep raising this red flag, but since I'm supporting this thing actively, I want to win. And I think there is a red flag that's going up, and that is that every agency meeting I go to, somebody's trying to put a tax measure on this ballot. We just heard about the vehicle license fee. We know that Stop Waste is looking for a parcel tax. We know that we were approached the other night at ABAG about a Bay Area-wide parcel tax. We just heard that the feds want to double our gas tax. It's not on our ballot, but still it's going to be part of the overall mix. So I think we need to really work hard and distinguish ourselves from some of these others so that we can make sure it's money. So any ideas that the committee might have that we can distinguish ourselves, I think we can do a good job with the watchdog committee and the Tri-Valley. It's going to make a big difference out there. So we need to do that.
Okay, so, and all I would say is, remember, we lost by 721 votes and we didn't have your support. And this time we do, so that's going to push us over the top. But I do hear what you're saying, Commissioner, and I think it's very important. And I am actually very serious that I think that
it is important, and I think, well, I wasn't on the council last time, but I think as the more the council members here, because I know I'll actively be knocking on doors in Union City for this measure, as well as some of those other things that are going to be on the ballot in November. It is going to be a crowded ballot, and people really need to understand the significance of the local items on the ballot for the quality of life, as well as Alameda County as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. And my answer was somewhat flippant about the consent. You're 100% right. That is a captive audience. Those are usually people that are informed of the community that is watching their councils.
Right.
So it is in our best interest to actually do some sort of presentation. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, I want to add to that. In February, we are planning to bring back to you a strategic communication outreach plan so that you know what we have in front of us. In terms of city council meeting, our plan is to do a full presentation at the city council. This time go around, though, it won't be just me and Ted. We are planning to mobilize, invigorate our supporter on the ground and also to stand beside us when we stand in front of the council asking for your support. So we're actually beginning to mobilize our troops to do just that.
Commissioner Cutter, followed by Commissioner Carson.
I just wanted to comment about the community, express lanes, that we have assurances put in place that we safeguard that money that comes back to reinvest and doesn't go to Caltrans or some other agency. And is that put in place yet, or you're
Well,
confident?
actually, isn't that in state law right now?
Yes,
The
that's
facilities
correct.
we operate.
It is in state law. What we put in the plan is really to strengthen, give the voters the assurance, not only that the positive net revenue generated from the operating the hot lane, not only that the state can't take it away, because that's a state law, but the plan is committed to reinvest the revenue within that corridor and making sure that transit operations and transit capital are eligible users for those funds. I mean, that maybe to get people out of cars. So let's buy some more buses to run in those lanes.
That's really important. Thank you.
Commissioner Carson?
Yeah, actually, I was going to comment to Commissioner Thorne's comment, but I'll let it go. I mean, we did discuss a little earlier at the other meeting, the same concern about taxes, which we can't stop. You know, people putting taxes on the ballots that are coming up. But at some point in time, with the overburden of that to the same taxpayer, any of us as elected officials are going to have to try to figure out how we work with the community and not eat ourselves.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak? With that, I am looking for a motion.
I will second.
You're right, I probably should have let you second that under Robert's Rules of Order, to be very honest with you. Actually, we have two speaker cards, two very important people that are committed to helping us. And remember, each one of you are going to become fundraisers for this also. It was $10,000. I think it was $10,000, but we probably can't talk about that here. So the first one is Andrew Slifka, and after that, Andreas Kluber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Andrew Slifka. I'm a representative with the Carpenters Union here in Alameda County. Alameda County homeowner and resident, taxpayer, and unfortunately, with your permission, I'll also be speaking on behalf of Andreas Kluber, the head of the Alameda County Building Trades, who had a last-minute daycare issue, had to leave. So I'm here in total support of the staff's recommendation to move this plan forward to expand and improve the transportation in Alameda County. It's much needed. We're 100% committed to it. And also looking forward to the jobs aspect of it, of which our members are actively looking to work and help build a strong transportation system here in Alameda County. We're also prepared to support your staff on the roadshow and whatever it takes to get this passed and overcome that short little bump we had the last go around. So I would encourage you moving this forward and approving the plan, and we can get the band back together. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I had a motion and a second. Is there any objection to the motion? Motion will pass unanimously. Thank you all very much, and look forward to working with you over this next year to get this passed. All right, let's move to 10.1.
Following steps in the bond issuance process have been concluded already. That is to draft the documents to meet the objectives and we created and presented a comprehensive overview of the ACTC, the regional economy, and security and structure of the proposed bonds. And we gave a presentation to S&P and Fitch. And we received these ratings as Chair Haggerty had mentioned. We received AAA from both, and this is the first self-help county to receive the AAA rating from Fitch in California, which was a big achievement for us. The next steps in the process will be to print and distribute our preliminary official statement. This is a document that goes to all the investors that are looking to invest in the bonds so that they know a little bit more about us, or hopefully a lot more about us, and feel comfortable investing in the bonds. We need to market these bonds to investors. We're planning to do this through investor calls, through investor presentations, and we plan on recording a web-based presentation as well. And we need to price the bonds. Then we need to sign the bond purchase agreement. This is the agreement with the underwriters for sale of the bonds. And we need to print the final official statement, sign all the documents, and do the final closing of the bond sale. So in designing the structure of the bonds, we had some specific objectives in mind, and some of those included designing the structure to quickly take advantage of the interest rate environment. So we wanted a structure that can be implemented quickly, and we wanted to ensure that we meet all the cash flow requirements in our capital program. We wanted to utilize a fixed rate structure, and we wanted to secure a strong credit rating. The security and structure of the bonds that we have come up with is a gross pledge of our sales tax revenues, which is fairly common in a sales tax revenue bond. We want to issue premium bonds with a not to exceed par amount of $165 million. We plan to set up the debt service so that we pay interest only for the first couple of years, which is the pinch point of our capital program, so that we start our first principal payment then in 2017. This helps us minimize the amount of bonds that we need to actually issue and reduces the cost overall. We have a level debt service structure established through 2017 through the end of the measure. This ensures our consistency for budget planning. And the final maturity is in March 2022. We've structured it with a closed lien. A closed lien means that our indenture, the indenture that we are asking you to approve today, does not allow for any other senior debt on this Measure B. It will allow for refunding of these bonds or subordinate debt, but no other senior debt. And this was a key point for the rating agencies and why I think that we received the AAA rating. We have not set up a debt service reserve fund. A debt service reserve fund is set up to ensure it's additional security for purchasers of the bonds so that they know that you'll be able to pay the debt service on the bonds. We didn't set this up because based on our structure, which was very secure, we felt that we didn't need it and that money could be better spent on the projects and putting projects on the street. And obviously with the ratings that we received, we were correct, we didn't need it. And actually this allows us to issue not as large of a bond issuance as well and saves money. The bonds are structured as non-callable, and we have an estimated maximum annual debt service coverage of over 4.5 times, and this is based on our fiscal year 2013 revenues. Some of the features may change though when we go to market because everything changes in the market on a daily basis. However, these are where we expect most things to land. We expect to go pricing on the bonds in mid-February. The bond documents before you that are in substantially final form have been reviewed by everybody on the team that you saw here today, which includes our bond counsel, our bond disclosure counsel, our general counsel, and our financial advisor, our underwriters, and the whole financing team. These documents include, and I won't go into detail on each one because they are detailed in your staff report, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. They include the master indenture, the first supplemental indenture, the preliminary official statement, the bond purchase agreement, the continuing disclosure agreement, the State Board of Equalization amended and restated agreement, and the post-issuance compliance procedures. The recommendation before you is to approve a bond not to exceed $165 million, but based on the current runs that we've been doing, we don't expect to have to issue that much. We're getting approval for that much just so that we have the flexibility when we actually go to market. Our current runs have been showing that we expect to issue about $138 million in par value of bonds. The estimated cost for issuing the bonds, which will be paid out of bond proceeds, is approximately $647,500. This includes costs for our financial advisors, our bond and disclosure counsel, which are PFM, R. Carrington, and Fulbright and Jaworski. We have Citigroup and Barclays as our underwriters, and it includes other miscellaneous, for example, general counsel, rating agency fees, trustee fees, printer costs. So there's a lot of other little things too that, and we didn't want to detail it all out, it would get too small for you, but there are a lot of other costs that go into that number. The remaining steps in our process is to finalize the preliminary official statement. We need to print and distribute this for investors. We want to market the bonds to investors, as I mentioned before, through conference calls, investor meetings, and a web-based presentation. We need to price the bonds, sign the bond purchase agreement, print the final official statement, and sign all the other bond documents so we can close the bond sale. During the sale of the bonds, we have set it up so that Alameda County residents will have priority on bond purchases at the final yield price. Staff expects to report back to the commission in March, actually on the bond sale. That's not next month, I almost said that accidentally. The fiscal impact is expected to be $2.68 million of expenses for the fiscal year 2014. That includes the cost of issuance costs, the $647,500 we talked about earlier, and about $2 million for accrued debt service. This actually won't be paid in this fiscal year, but it will be accrued into this fiscal year. The final payment will be made for the months that apply to this fiscal year, and the final payment will be made in September 2014. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on these items.
Any questions? That was a major download.
I know that, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of information to get through to you.
I think it's information that we have to have. So I did have a motion, actually now I have a second by the Oakland contingent, Kathleen Reed. Nobody from the public wishes to speak on this item. With that, is there any objection to the motion before you? The motion will pass unanimously. I'll tell you, this commission's done a lot of work today. And we're actually in the big boy territory, I guess. Now we're going into that. Okay, so with that, I promise you I'd probably get you out of here early. It's looking that way. Are there any member reports? Anybody have anything they want to say? John?
Can I make
Yes.
a real quick comment?
Yeah, you got to plug in those so your mic will go on. So,
I just want to express my thanks to this body, and especially to you, Scott, and ACTC for the leadership that you provided on the airport connector. We had a showing of the vehicles that were traveling at 3.2 miles down Hagenberg into the convenient airport, and so I just want to thank you, John. Thank you for your leadership of you guys really just seeing some beautiful cars that the public is going to see fairly soon. So in the next 3 weeks, they're going to be doing some test runs up and down the rail line, and just thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Stuart, thank you for being there representing the agency. Really appreciate it.
great, thank you, Larry. I still have a lot more holes in it from that fight. Art, you want to say something?
I just have one, Mr. Chair, just a housekeeping item. Just want to remind all commissioners that the standing committee meetings in February will be on February 3rd. Same time, just move one Monday forward.
Right, and the other thing that I want to say in closing, again, thank you all for allowing me to serve as chair for the next year. However, I don't really see any movement amongst the commission, so if everybody's happy, I'd like to just leave everybody where we're at. I will have to make one change within the Budget and Finance Committee in relationship to the chair, which I will announce. Well, I guess no big secret. I've asked Supervisor Valier to take over the chair of that committee when John leaves us to the term limits. So, but other than that, I think everything's good. We're just going to leave the status quo. If you are interested in another committee and I can make a move, I'll try to do it for you. But at this point, I think we are all working great, and I think it's fine the way it is. With that, again, thanks to staff and all the hard work you've been doing with the GEP and also with our bond that's coming up. I'm really proud of the staff in this agency in spite of that. So, okay, with that, I got some really great news for you. Go home.